Welcome to Speed Reads, Meditations for Mortals. Get a new perspective on what it really means to be productive. We all struggle with the belief that if we could just manage everything, our tasks, relationships, and responsibilities, then life would finally feel under control. But this obsession with perfection and order often leaves us feeling anxious, burned out, and disconnected. If you've tried a lot of self-help and productivity systems, you likely know that the problem isn't the method itself, but the very idea that life can be perfectly managed. So, instead of striving for mastery over everything, here's a liberating alternative: embrace the uncertainty that is inherent in life and take action without obsessing over the outcome. In Meditations for Mortals, the author has presented a collection of daily meditations in the tradition of the Stoic master Marcus Aurelius. Each day he presents a new way of looking at the challenges of work and life, culminating in 4 weeks' worth of advice. This summary looks at those 4 weeks in turn, revealing a refreshing way to start accepting life for what it is and focus on what truly matters. Week 1, Letting Go. Week 1 of our 4 weeks of daily meditations is all about embracing our limitations. It's about recognizing that we are all finite beings, with real limits on how much we can accomplish in our lifetime. Embracing life's limitations goes hand in hand with recognizing that we're often trying to juggle too much, a situation where we simply can't do it all. Once you accept this fact, it's like getting caught in a rainstorm and letting go of the idea that you're going to stay dry. The anxiety of trying to control everything begins to fade, freeing you to focus on what you can do, not in the hope of creating a perfect life, but because the actions themselves are worthwhile. Sometimes, the feeling of being burdened by a never-ending list of tasks can be a form of procrastination, of avoiding meaningful action. The same can be said of trying to honor some sense of perfectionism. Both of these things can keep us from making big choices and moving forward. Think of it this way: we dream of being on a superyacht, where we can control our destiny with steady precision. But in reality, life is more like paddling a kayak, unsteady, unpredictable, and messy. So how do you start spending time on what matters? Just do the thing. Today. The act of doing, even imperfectly, is what builds the habit of meaningful living. Waiting for the perfect conditions or the right mindset is just a distraction from the simple, hard truth: you have to start paddling. Here's one tip for getting started. Instead of measuring your worth by the boxes you haven't ticked off on your to-do list, try keeping a done list. Every task you complete gets added to this growing list, which can help shift your perspective from one of endless deficit to a more positive acknowledgement of progress. While you're at it, don't feel obligated to stay on top of the constant stream of news and social media. It's okay to withdraw your attention from the noise and focus on the issues that truly matter to you. Being a good citizen isn't about being outraged at everything. It's about choosing your battles wisely and focusing your attention and energy in ways that can make a difference. Now for worrying. Worrying is human nature, but it can also be misguided. When you worry, you're often trying to predict the future, which is a fool's game. Instead, how about starting to trust yourself? It's a given that challenges will come. But it can also be a given that you'll be equipped to handle them when they do. This is something that the legendary Stoic Marcus Aurelius taught: don't let fear of the future destroy your present. Trust that you'll have the tools you need when the time comes. Week 2, moving forward. Moving on to week 2, let's focus some more on how we can become better at taking action. The start of week 2 is all about making decisions. In his book Time Warrior, Steve Chandler points out that decision-making should be more about choosing rather than endlessly trying to decide. You don't need months to figure out how to start a project, just make a choice and begin. Decisions energize us by moving our focus from avoidance to action. The key is that a decision isn't real until it's acted upon. Take a small step, if need be, but make a choice. You'll find that momentum can come when you get in the habit of finishing things. While you might think completing a project will drain you, the opposite is true. With completion comes energy that fuels further productivity. On the flip side, constantly starting without finishing leads to misery and a lack of accomplishments. The trick? Redefine what finished means. Break your tasks into small, manageable parts that you can complete in a single sitting. Each completed step builds momentum and clears your mental clutter. You're still unsure about what you should be choosing to do. Think about your life task. The term life task comes from the famed psychologist Carl Jung. Sometimes, life itself is asking something of you. You might recognize it as a challenge before you, something that you know will enlarge you by undertaking it, even if it's uncomfortable. Your life task isn't about fulfilling societal expectations, but tapping into what you're uniquely equipped to do in your current reality. The right life task should feel like a good difficulty, something possible with the resources and skills you have right now. When it comes to getting started, don't get hung up on creating and following some self-imposed rules. When we start down a new path, whether it's a project, a diet, or an exercise regime, we think we have to tick a certain box every day. If we miss a day, it's all over. Don't do this to yourself. Rules should serve your life, not the other way around. Make the idea of dailyish your way forward. Dailyish means applying consistency without the pressure of perfection. This flexible rule allows for realistic progress without fixating on unbroken streaks. It's about focusing on what truly matters and making steady, imperfect progress toward your goals. That's life. Likewise, when you're sitting down to make progress, don't overdo it. The secret to getting more done lies in concentrated bursts of focus, not extended hours of effort. There's a long list of creatives, including authors like Charles Dickens, Alice Munro, and J. G. Ballard, who found that 3 to 4 hours of focused work each day was their sweet spot. Any more than that and you're overdoing it, the results won't be good. Let the rest of the day be chaotic, and just aim for those few hours of deep concentration. Those are the ones that move the needle the most. Life is never without chaos. It's time to simply embrace that as a fact. Let it be a good thing. Problems are what make life meaningful, and not knowing is exciting. Even in our leisure activities, like board games or cooking, it's the challenge and the uncertain outcome that engages us. Learning to see problems as part of the process, rather than something to avoid, is key to a fulfilling life. Week 3, Rethinking Roadblocks. Here's a question: is effort always a sign of meaningful work? This is the kind of idea we're going to challenge in Week 3. Often, we equate worthwhile tasks with things we have to motivate ourselves to do. But this just leads to a constant internal struggle. We convince ourselves that anything valuable must be difficult, which makes us approach tasks with more nervous energy than necessary. Instead, why not ask, what if this were easy? It's a subtle yet radical shift in perspective. Instead of gearing up for a fight during your next challenging project, ask yourself what it would look like if it felt effortless. The key isn't to avoid hard work, but to stop assuming that struggle equals success. We often bully ourselves into productivity, believing that if we're not constantly pushing, we won't achieve anything. But this relentless self-criticism drains our energy. Rather than using force, it's possible to have a lighter, more productive day by following your natural flow and rhythms. Take a moment to recognize that allowing yourself to do what feels natural isn't lazy. It can actually be the most effective route to success. Now, while letting go may not come easily to you, you still might agree that the unpredictability of life is what makes it rich and fulfilling. Control equals predictability, and when life becomes entirely predictable, it loses its spark. Think of a vacation where everything goes off plan. While it might be frustrating in the moment, it often ends up being the best story. Embrace uncertainty, knowing that the best experiences often come from what you didn't expect. Another aspect of perfectionism is to put an emphasis on quality over quantity. But this well-meaning approach can also be a crutch, keeping you from making any progress at all. Shift that focus from quality to quantity. Get results. Finish things. The goal isn't to produce perfect results, but to produce, period. By focusing on output, whether it's writing a set number of words or generating a list of ideas, you free yourself from the paralysis of perfectionism. Quantity goals give you permission to create without the burden of constantly judging the quality of your work. Finally, let's close out week 3 by reframing distractions. Instead of making interruptions a bad thing, let's accept that the mind's natural state is to wander. Fighting distractions can make them feel worse, whereas embracing moments of unpredictability can lead to unexpected creativity and joy. Being flexible with your attention allows you to engage with life as it unfolds, rather than resisting it. Again, you can choose to make it a struggle, or you can choose to accept life as it is and open yourself up to more authentic and fulfilling experiences. Week 4, being here now. We've arrived at week 4, and this time it's all about showing up. Here, we're going to go a little bit deeper into what it means to live in accordance with life as it is rather than forcing it to be something it isn't. Let's start with goals. Having goals isn't a bad thing, but it can be a problem when you're always treating the present as merely a stepping stone to some better, more real future. This moment is life itself. Sure, you can plan, dream, and set goals, but you shouldn't wait for those goals to be accomplished before feeling alive. Life is happening now. It doesn't start happening after everything is figured out. Along these same lines, try to approach your work from a sense of groundedness in the present, instead of thinking that peace of mind is something you'll achieve after certain things are accomplished. You can think of this as operating from sanity rather than striving toward sanity. For starters, treat your to-do list as a menu. Choose the most important things now, rather than trying to finish everything before you can relax. Another tip for relaxing in the present is to practice what the author calls scruffy hospitality. If you have people coming over, don't go into overdrive trying to make the place sparkle. If you've got some stains in the kitchen, that's reality. Embrace it. These kinds of imperfections are actually admired by a lot of people. It's real, it's generous, and it's far more intimate than a spotless, overly controlled environment. You can also begin to let go of trying to collect experiences. This is a common state of mind for a lot of people these days as we try to maximize everything, including our memorable moments and experiences in life. But that's not what life is about, is it? It's not about collecting experiences or trying to freeze time. If you stress about these things, you're preventing yourself from actually being immersed in the moment fully. Moments are fleeting. That's what makes them special. It's time to let go and enjoy the ride. This brings us back to the core message from the beginning of week 1. Our time is finite. Despite our urges to control our lives and aim for perfection, these things are actually getting in the way of doing what really matters. So now's the time to overcome your self-doubts by simply starting. Nobody is flawless, and no one ever knows what they're doing completely. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't is often the willingness to try, even in uncertainty. To put it another way, don't overthink it. Your individual significance is minor in the grand scheme of things. But that doesn't mean your actions are meaningless. Rather than trying to achieve something extraordinary, you should focus on the joy and fulfillment of the small, meaningful acts that make up our lives. Continue onward, imperfectly. Embrace life's messiness and savor the reality that you are here, right now, and that's more than enough. Final summary. The main takeaway of this summary to Meditation for Mortals by Oliver Burkeman is that it's time to embrace the reality of imperfection and the fleeting nature of life. This means no longer waiting for the perfect moment or an idealized version of life to arrive. True fulfillment comes not from achieving grandiose goals, but from pursuing your life task with presence and acceptance of life's messiness. By struggling against this messiness, or putting up barriers to protect yourself from the reality of life's uncertainty, you only create stress and anxiety. But once you abandon the idea of needing to maximize your productivity to feel secure or significant, and instead adopt an imperfectionist mindset, you can achieve a certain peace of mind and freedom in your work. Finite beings like us can still accomplish meaningful things without being flawless. Rather than seeing your limitations as a problem, you can see them as part of the human condition that can guide you toward living more authentically. You can take meaningful action today by embracing your limits, honoring the present, and finding joy in the journey instead of clinging to unrealistic ideals. Okay, that's it for this speed read summary. We hope you enjoyed it. If you can, please take the time to subscribe and leave a comment. We always appreciate your feedback. See you in the next one.